King Panther the Wise of Portugal came to the throne at the tender age of 15 in the year of our Lord 893. His succession was marred by the sad fact that his father, the godly and charitable King Wolf, had committed suicide, the most unforgivable of sins. Whispers circulated that Panther was behind his father's suicide, backed up by the rather sudden and horrific deaths of his older siblings. In fact, only one of his older siblings lived long enough to see Panther take the throne, but he was not really aware of it, as he was confined in bed, nothing but a vegetable inhabiting a suit of human flesh. And all of this before Panther even reached the age of majority. But no one dared to say a word out loud, for fear of ending up in Panther's dungeon. It was well known throughout the Iberian Peninsula that the cells below his castle in Lisboa were a horrific place. Few ever emerged from them, and those that did told tales of torture, death, and the horrific, ungodly rituals. Often had the chambermaids seen their king returning in the dark of the night, blood staining his clothes and a maniacal smile gracing his features, and yet many did not know of his darkest deeds, for he was careful to cover his face and disguise his voice when he took to frolicking across the countryside with his followers, leaving death and dismemberment in his wake. Despite those horrific rumors and dark whispers, King Panther wanted only what was best for the fledgling nation of Portugal. It was his father, his mortal father, that broke their nation free of the Umayyad Empire, and saw that Panther held true greatness, favored by the stars his Hermetic society prized so greatly. Little did he know what those stars truly foretold. Upon gaining the throne, Panther had two goals: bring glory to Portugal and start his family down the path of worshipping the true faith, Massalian, where Satan stood shoulder to shoulder with Jesus as a son of God. The first goal would be easy, as Panther was a formidable commander and led his nation to glory through countless wars, nearly doubling the nation by the time of his death over 50 years after he first inherited. His second goal proved trickier, for while he knew that Lucifer was the true holder of power, he would need to gently lead his nation to the same conclusion. So, to this end, he set upon his first goal: breed a flock of children. He knew he would need children, raised upon his words and teachings to carry on his plans after he was called back to be with his true father. As an added bonus, they were useful sources of power to ensure he could spend enough time upon this mortal plane so as to achieve his goals. There were hiccups with a few of his wives. They did not seem to realize that betrayal equaled death, at least not at first. After 2 examples, he never had another issue with a wife, which was quite lucky for them, since they did not seem to enjoy being sacrificed to his most unholy father, Satan. In his younger years, Panther found himself overcome with lust constantly. It drove him to lose control of his mortal mind at times, letting his darker impulses take control. The orgy was particularly memorable, at least what he remembered of it. He knew his lust to be a blessing from his unholy father, but it did lead to raised eyebrows and quiet murmurs amongst his nobles. Not that any of them dared to speak up about it. They knew his dungeon always had room for more. His adventures and lusts led him down rarely trodden paths. But was that not right? He was the son of Satan, and it was only right that nymphs and talking horses would approach him. These rumors did concern him, though, and he ordered a set of armor to protect his sweet lover, Glitterhoof, especially after that disgraceful priest approached him offering to cure him of his possession. Cure? There was no cure. There was no disease. They didn't understand. How could they understand? They were but mere mortals. They couldn't understand when he sent his young daughters away to study the dying religion of Nestorian, but that was all right. They would understand one day. Late at night, he found himself howling at the moon, calling for his father's strength, desperate to cure the infirmity that the use of his dark powers had cursed him with, after enacting revenge and teaching lessons to those that could not understand. As always, his father responded, healing Panther's mortal body and allowing him to continue upon his quest. Soon after this, Panther developed a public sympathy for Christendom, hoping that this would help pave the way for the conversions he planned to enact once his plans came to fruition. And if it didn't, well, as he had proven before, he had ways of dealing with those that didn't fall into line. It was in 925, 32 years into his reign, that King Panther finally learned the secrets of Nestorianism. His daughters had returned from their study abroad, and, with the help of a young woman, they taught him the secrets they had learned. Gleefully, Panther converted and set about bringing his nation to the true religion, or at least the stepping stone to the true religion. He even married the young woman in gratitude, an emotion he rarely, if ever, felt. It was after this that the purges commenced. Nobles that refused to convert away from Islam lost their land, either through revocation or abduction and sacrifice. No one was allowed to stand in Panther's way. Large numbers of peasants rose up. Led by local religious leaders, they refused to accept Nestorian. Panther donned his armor and personally led his troops against these heretics. It was a glorious battle. His sword was soaked with the blood of his enemies, and he was riding high on the butchery of it. Choosing to celebrate, he invited a disloyal follower over for a meeting and relaxed as he listened to her cries of anguish from inside the brazen bull. Her screams were a perfect accompaniment to the truly unearthly music being produced by the musicians he had found. With his nation now converted to Nestorian, Panther set about reorganizing the laws. The first thing he did was pass the all-important Hole-in-the-Wall Act. It wasn't very popular, but that was all right. His dungeon always had more room. Plus, he needed the entertainment. He got so bored so easily. His nation now converted, Panther sent his followers out in search of ancient texts on Massalian. It was time to bring the truth of his father, Lucifer, to the world. Everything that Lucifer did was for the good of humankind, even if it seemed horrible. It was meant to bring strength and determination, for was not Lucifer also a son of God, just like Jesus? Two divine beings, both with different methods, yet equally right? Or, at least, that's what his most unholy father wanted the pathetic humans to believe. The years passed, though, and no proof of Lucifer's true spot in the cosmos emerged. There were whispers of documents in Tangier, but by the time Panther arrived, all evidence had been destroyed by the Duke. He took great joy in eliminating that heretic's family from the face of the planet. Sensing his growing distress, his loyal follower Dordia suggested that they frolic across the countryside. He took great joy in this and was left afterwards with a craving for the most rare of delicacies: human flesh. His new diet gave him a fresh perspective on life, and he decided to go on a pilgrimage to Antioch. Perhaps he could find there that which his followers had failed to locate. Sadly, he was mistaken, and found himself growing cynical. Even as Lucifer whispered in his ear, he couldn't help but wonder if the proof he needed existed. Sensing his cynicism, Lucifer sent an illness to bring Panther low. Weak and in pain, he turned to his court physician for help, not knowing that the man was an enemy. Drugged and weakened, Panther screamed in torment as his most sacred jewels were removed against his will. He took this as a sign and fell to his knees, howling to the moon and his most unholy father in despair, for without his carnal senses, how could he truly achieve his goals? Was he truly a man? Was he truly the son of Satan? Satan, seeing that Panther was truly apologetic for his cynicism, gifted him with new family jewels. But, at the same time, he sent a demon to seduce Panther. By the time the demon was done, Panther the Wise no longer saw the beauty or desire of womanly curves. Rather, he found himself looking towards those that were the same gender as him. This left him feeling confused until a strong hunter of a man, Faraz, arrived at court. This Faraz whispered sweet things in Panther's ears, and, once they were alone, he pulled out the documents that the king had been looking for so long. Excited, his faith in Satan restored, Panther set Faraz to tutoring his young grandsons in the ways of Massalianism, having grown untrusting of his own son and heir. For good reason. The joy and excitement came too late, though. The years of stressing and worrying over the lack of evidence to prove his unholy father's true place in the cosmos had taken its toll on King Panther the Wise, a toll too heavy for his simple mortal body. And so, in the year of our Lord 952, King Panther the Wise, the son of Satan, and the greatest king that Portugal ever had, gave up his mortal body and descended down to hell, to revel in his wicked ways with his most unholy father, leaving an unprecedented legacy in his wake.